Good morning. Well, a lot of my friends had requested and suggested that I provide my comments on the surgical strike undertaken by the government of India. Well, this strike was not against an enemy across the border, I mean. It was an enemy within the geographical confines of the country. It was an enemy of the economy. It was an enemy of the progress. And this surgical strike, coming on the heels of the political military strike, has created a furore. Well, when we look at the facts of the situation, we find that the opposition and the carping critics are this time crying horse. The political parties are joining hands once again to create a grand alliance. But for what purpose? Wasn't the action justified? Wasn't the surgical strike required? Wasn't there the need of such an action to ensure that the people are no longer cheated of their dues? Was it not required that the parallel economy be smashed so that the country can take the road to progress? By the way, are you aware that in 1972 the total number of 1000 notes was 393,000? And from 72 to January 2016, they jumped by 165 times, and their number was $6.3 billion. 6.3 billion notes of 1000 rupees each. And were they not being used in the economy? Were they being used? No. They were lying tied in sacks under the mattresses in the basements and being used for hawala transactions to send black money out of the country. They were being misused by the political parties to purchase the votes. They were also being used by the terrorists to pay their henchmen and create mayhem in the country. And these 1000 rupee notes and the 500 rupee notes were the basic means of financing of all drug deals, all mafia deals, all real estate issues, and all these were to the detriment of the interest of the country. I have been crying hoarse for a long time that we require to demonetize the currency. I had even a discussion with the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on this issue, and we had a long discussion, and he agreed that there's need, but he did not do so because of the political compulsions. I'm happy that Narendra Modi has come out of that political compulsion attitude and taken a step which was required. Now imagine, in this short span from 72, the number of notes jumped by 165 times. That means so much of inflation. That means so much of high prices which ordinary Indians pay. And that's why you don't get anything for 100 rupees and 200 rupees over there today. So the first step to correct the imbalance was what Modi did. But is first step sufficient? That will take later on, because no first step is always a last step. But the big movements, big projects always start with a tiny first step. But this is not a tiny protest. By the way, do you know what will be the result of this? As a matter of fact, 3 trillion rupees, equivalent to $45 billion, have been added to the budget of India. The and that decreases from that deficit $45 billion. In other words, 3 trillion rupees. What a achievement. Imagine the taxes of $45 billion which might have been imposed would not be imposed. It's quite possible to provide amenities and assistance to the people with the saving of this $45 billion. But then, this saving is not the end by itself. This is a cumulative effort. So the statistics shows, the real statistics, not the made up one, shows that we needed a way to withdraw this amount of money. And we have done two things with that. One, we have withdrawn the money so the process of inflation and high prices comes to a stop. Second, this money was being used for anti-national purposes and for economic offenses. So that has been rendered waste. That people have burnt the money, they have thrown it into Ganges, they have just thrown it, they have been selling it at rock bottom prices, but on the whole the money is out. And do you know another thing? 86% of the money in circulation has gone out of circulation now. So basically the reduction in the number of the notes available, the currency available for transactions, is reduced by 86%. Now the prices would not fall by 86%. Let's be very clear. Prices always rise immediately, but they take a long time to fall. Here, they would fall, though not in the same proportion. So who is going to benefit? A, the home hunters, not the homeowners. The prices are likely to fall of the real estate because A, this step has taken away the black money which could have been used. B, the next step, that more than 250,000 cash if it's deposited in a bank, you have to account for that. So the people will not be paying astronomical sums in black money. So the prices would fall. In my note written day before yesterday on the Facebook, I had written how the prices would fall in Mumbai, Delhi, Calcutta, Chandigarh, Ludhiana, Kanpur and other places. It would not be of the same level, but say in Gurgaon the prices could fall by as much as 1 crore of rupees. And all that mad rush to buy the real estate would come to a halt. That's the first step. The second step, the result rather of this step, the political life should become more honest, and also it would become more clean. It may not become absolutely clean, and that is why the opposition parties are crying hoarse. Have you seen Mayawati? Bedecked in diamonds. From where does that money come? She was a school teacher. Mulayam Singh Yadav, look at the family, the way they live, lavishly. Or any politician who becomes an MLA, a councillor, or an MP, within a couple of years he is a multi-millionaire. So that hope or that corruption, which was basically sucking the blood of the Indians, comes to an end. Now I am writing a open letter to Kejriwal, which would be published in the evening on the Facebook. Kejriwal and Mamta are saying that the common people are suffering. Yes, temporarily. And by this, today I think most of the problems have been solved. Every action when you take, some people do suffer. But what is more important? individual or the nation. Now let's come to the another point. Kachri and his mates say that why issue 2000 rupees note, why not continue to 1000 rupee note? They forget there's a need for that. You issue the same number, the same amount, and that can be deposited in the morning, taken out in the evening, deposited again next morning, taken out in the evening, and every day you are depositing, you are keeping a record. But there is no record of your withdrawal. The same 1000 rupees you can deposit 20 times and claim that you have deposited 20,000 rupees. This is an economics called the peak theory. Now, peak theory has been misused by the wrongdoers all the time, and by issuing 2000 rupee note, the very basis of the peak theory is smashed. It's blown off. It's not possible to indulge in this malpractice. You would say that the people have suffered. Normally, it was a problem for 2 days. ATM were not functioning for 2 days. Don't people keep cash for 2 days? They should. And why keep cash in big denominations? And there's never an emergency. Secondly, the government had very clearly stated there were 7 issues which they have been taken up. A. No hospital shall refuse to accept 1000 rupees note because of the health needs. No crematorium would refuse to accept 1000 rupee note because people have to be cremated. No milk shop shall refuse, milk depot. No petrol pump, gas station shall refuse. So 7 categories were there which were obligated to accept. Now the news came that somebody died because they didn't have 1000 rupee note. I made inquiries and it was a total bullshit. What had actually happened was they had the money, they deposited the money was given, they went out and brought the medicine with that money, the medicine was purchased by them. However, people died and the person died. It was not because of the lack of money or incapability of use of money, it was because of other factors. But then the media is always on the lookout. We have seen in US how the media was against Trump. We are seeing in India how media is against Modi. Media wants only mollycoddlers and corrupt people, because if the leaders are corrupt, they'll give gifts to the media, houses, cars. Do you know the journalists in India get so much from the government and now they have stopped getting, so naturally they are annoyed. As a matter of fact, another thing, the terrorist funding is starved off. As a matter of fact, on the last count, it was thought that more than a few million rupees are with the terrorist funding, and they are 1000 rupee notes. Now that alone should be sufficient to help us realize how much important and how much useful the game is. Now, of course, coming to the next steps. What I had delineated in my discussions with the Prime Minister, I had very clearly said, demonetize our money, issue new currency notes, which they have done, 500 and 2000. The next step should be demonetize other money, 50 rupee notes, 20 rupee notes, but in phases so that the people don't suffer. Thirdly, stop all Benami deals, and wherever Benami deals are there, confiscate that property. There's a law in India and in USA and in Canada and in Europe, equity. No. We have to take revolutionary steps. What we say is, let them prove that the property was purchased with the honest money. Let's know the source of that money. So the government should come up with a scheme to identify all the Benami properties especially of the politicians and the corporate leaders, and find out the source of the money to purchase the property. If the source cannot be identified, confiscate the property and sell it off. Sell it off. Thirdly, the houses which are allocated to the MPs, MLAs should be taken over and sold to the common people if they can buy it. And this practice of mollycoddling MP should stop. They should get the house rent at the same rate the government officials get. 10%, 15% of the salary, or whatever the rules are. They should be at par with them, because what happens is, even when they are defeated, they keep on staying in the houses for years and years together. That would be the second step. Thirdly, try to ensure that no cash transactions as far as would be there. The plastic money should be encouraged. The credit cards and the debit cards should be encouraged. People should not it should not be in the habit of using currency. This is a very effective way. It has its defects, I don't deny it. It would encourage overspending. It will encourage wastage of funds, yes. But it will protect the economy from turning from white to grey and then to black. That is extremely important. Fourthly, which is still more important, is that the people should be told very clearly that the property is, the principal property should be given the same tax, but the secondary property and the investment property should be taxed at a much higher rate. Now you'll ask the reason for that. India is a relatively small country geographically. Whatever the Indians might say that it's a huge country, no, it's not. It is 1/7 of Canada, and population wise is 1.25 billion. Now per person, the portion of land is very small. So land is a scarce resource and should not be used to exploit millions for the benefit of the few. So it is important and imperative that the secondary sources, secondary ownerships, as well as investment property should be taxed at a higher rate. This will take away the lure of land and reduce the urge to have black money to buy property where you cannot afford it. So there should be a reasons. Of course, the production has to give, and then every politician. Now, what happens is when the politician comes, he has to give a statement of the assets, and after 1 year, another one. Now, that is enough for them. No, it should not be. Their assets should be scrutinized, and the source of the increase of the assets of more than say 5% in a year they should be asked to explain. And many times what happens is the assets are in the names of the sons and the daughters and the grandsons and the granddaughters, and even the sons and the daughters not yet born. The ruling family in Punjab is a case in point. They have lands in the name of the children yet to be born. That should be stopped. Any property which has been gifted or shown as a gift to a minor should be taxed very heavily. As a matter of fact, each person should identify the ownership, and in case of Benami transaction, it should be a summary law, confiscate, just confiscate. And at that time, no other consideration should be there. Of course, that calls for probity, that calls for honesty. But that's required. Drastic diseases need drastic remedies. And what Modi has done with this surgical strike, which I call the financial surgical strike, is something which is extremely relevant, extremely useful, And all the opposition is basically in selfish interest to protect their self-interest. The prices of the real estate going down, the inflation going down, the corruption going down, the anti-terrorist activities being not feeded. What else do you want? And yet there's a cry from some politicians, and those politicians are doing it, as I said, for their selfish ends, not for because of the national interest. You see, these politicians, when they cry about the national interest, are basically considering themselves to be the nation. They are not. So, friends, today I talked about this financial surgical strike, not because it was relevant to Canada, but because primarily it's relevant to 1.2 billion people in India who are close to some of you here. And that is what is important. And India is becoming a bulwark of progressive forces. As a matter of fact, I can foresee, if the political leadership is sagacious enough, in this bipolar or tripolar world, this can be the fourth pole. It's not totalitarian like China. It is not greedy and selfish like USA. So it can, and it is not communist like Russia. So it can be the fourth pole, the hope of Asia and Africa. It can lead to continents, and the largest continent and the most populous continent. It has the capability. But first it needs integrity. And this surgical strike, this financial surgical strike, is a first step towards establishing financial integrity, which will lead to political integrity, hopefully. Thank you.